I never thought I'd be standing on a stage with millions of people watching me, holding an award that represented everything my parents tried to strip away from me. But life has a funny way of coming full circle when you're pushed into a corner. For 10 years, my mother and father told every relative, every neighbor, and every family friend that I was mentally unstable and dangerously delusional just because I refused to let them control my life and my finances. They painted me as a lost cause to hide the fact that they were the ones who had failed me, and for a long time, the world believed them. I lost friends, I lost my reputation, and I almost lost my mind trying to prove I wasn't the monster they said I was. But as I stood under those bright lights, looking directly into the camera lens, I knew they were watching from their living room, and I knew their carefully constructed lie was about to come crashing down in front of the entire country. Was I wrong for using my biggest moment of success to expose the people who raised me? Or would you have done the exact same thing if you'd been silenced for a decade? To understand how I got to that stage, you have to understand the dynamic of the Miller household. Growing up, I wasn't a person to my parents. I was an investment. My father, Richard, was a high-level corporate accountant who viewed everything through the lens of profit and loss, and my mother, Deanne, was obsessed with the perfect family image. I was their only child, and from the moment I could speak, my life was a curated performance. I had to have the highest grades, the best extracurriculars, and the most polite manners. If I stepped out of line, the punishment wasn't a lecture or a timeout, it was psychological warfare. They would freeze me out for days, acting like I didn't exist, until I broke down and apologized for crimes I didn't even understand. When I turned 18, I received a small inheritance from my grandmother, my mother's mother, who had always seen through their facade. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to pay for my college and give me a head start. My parents, however, felt that money belonged to them as compensation for raising me. When I refused to sign it over to them, the narrative changed instantly. I wasn't their perfect daughter anymore. I was suddenly unstable. It started small. My mother would call our aunts and uncles, whispering into the phone about how I had outbursts and how she was worried I was losing my grip on reality. My father would tell my cousins that I was manic and that they should be careful around me. Because they were respected members of the community, everyone believed them. When I tried to defend myself, my parents would just exchange a knowing, pitying look and say, "See, she's getting worked up again. It's the illness talking." It was gaslighting on a professional level. I moved out, thinking distance would help, but it only made it worse. They used my absence as proof that I couldn't handle the pressures of the world. Every time I achieved something, getting a job at a top architectural firm or winning a local design competition, they would tell people I had imagined the success or that they had pulled strings to get me the position because I was too fragile to do it on my own. I became a pariah in my own family. My cousins stopped inviting me to weddings, and my childhood friends stopped calling because they'd been told I was off my meds and unpredictable. For years, I worked in silence. I poured every ounce of my frustration and my instability into my work. I specialized in sustainable urban design, creating spaces that were meant to heal communities. I lived in a tiny apartment, stayed away from family gatherings, and built a new life from scratch with people who didn't know the Miller family name. My parents, meanwhile, continued their campaign. They even went as far as to call my employer once, claiming they were concerned about my mental state and asking if I was managing my episodes at work. Thankfully, my boss saw the quality of my work and realized my parents were the ones who were unhinged, but the stress of it nearly broke me. I spent nights crying, wondering why the people who were supposed to love me the most were so intent on destroying me. They wanted me to fail so I would crawl back to them, give them the money, and let them control me again. They wanted a broken daughter they could care for to look like martyrs in front of their friends. So that was the reality I lived in for 10 long years, a ghost in my own life, branded as crazy by the two people who brought me into this world. I was at a breaking point, and I had to decide. Do I keep hiding and let them win, or do I take the biggest risk of my life to show everyone the truth? Before I tell you what happened on that night of the awards ceremony and how I chose to handle the confrontation that followed, I want you to pause. Think about the people you trust the most. If your own parents told everyone you were losing your mind just to control your bank account, what would you do? Would you disappear and start over, or would you wait for the perfect moment to burn their reputation to the ground? Tell me in the comments right now, because I really want to know if my instability was actually just justified rage. The moment of truth came when I was nominated for the National Visionary Award in Urban Architecture. This wasn't just some local plaque. It was a televised event, the Oscars of my industry. When my parents found out, they didn't congratulate me. Instead, my mother sent me a long, condescending email saying they were praying for my recovery and that they hoped the delusions of grandeur wouldn't cause me to have a public breakdown. They told the rest of the family that the nomination was a mistake or that I had exaggerated my role in the project. They actually told my Aunt Sarah that I wasn't even going to the ceremony because I was too unwell to travel. They were so confident in their lie that they didn't think I'd show up. But I did. I wore a dress that made me feel like a warrior, and I sat in the front row. When they called my name as the winner, the room erupted in applause. As I walked up to the podium, I saw the camera operators zooming in. This was being broadcast live on a major network and streamed to hundreds of thousands of people. I took a deep breath, looked into the lens, and started my speech. I thanked my mentors and my team, but then I took a turn no one expected. I said, "For 10 years, I've been told by the people who should have supported me most that I was mentally unstable, that I was a failure, and that my achievements were nothing more than hallucinations. They told everyone you see here today that I was a danger to myself and others just because I wouldn't let them control my life." To my parents, Richard and Diane, who I know are watching this right now, I am not unstable. I am a national award winner, and the only thing crazy about me is that I survived you. The silence in the room was deafening for a split second before a wave of murmurs broke out. I didn't stop there. I pulled out a small folder of papers I had tucked into my clutch, copies of the emails my mother had sent me and the concerns they had sent to my boss. I held them up for the camera. This is what emotional abuse looks like. It's quiet, it's polite, and it's meant to ruin you. But tonight, the truth is louder. The aftermath was absolute chaos. By the time I walked off stage, my phone was blowing up with hundreds of texts. My mother was hysterical, leaving voicemails screaming that I had humiliated them and that they would never forgive me. My father tried to threaten me with a defamation lawsuit, but I had the receipts. The best part, the rest of the family, the aunts, uncles, and cousins who had shunned me for a decade, were watching. They saw the award, they saw the evidence, and they saw the look of pure, calm clarity on my face. The facade my parents had built for 30 years shattered in less than 60 seconds. People started coming forward, neighbors who remembered my mother's, worried, whispers, colleagues of my father who realized his stories didn't add up. My parents became the social pariahs they tried to make me. They had to sell their house and move to a different state because they couldn't show their faces at the country club or the grocery store without people whispering about their cruelty. I didn't do it for the fame, and I didn't even do it for the award. I did it because the truth is the only thing that can kill a lie that big. My parents tried to bury me, but they forgot I was a seed. Today, I have no contact with them, and for the first time in my life, I feel truly sane. I have a community of people who love me for who I am, not for the perfect image I can project. I learned that you don't owe your loyalty to people who use your vulnerability as a weapon against you, even if those people are your parents. If you're going through something similar, if you're being gaslit or silenced, just know that your truth is worth fighting for, and one day, the world will see you for who you really are. Like this video if you think I made the right choice by exposing them on live TV, and subscribe for more stories about standing up to toxic family. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or was it the perfect revenge? I'll see you all in the next story.